Hi, Elaine here from markergeek.com. I've got something a little different for you today. I recently rediscovered the box that I have that is full of alcohol inks. And so I decided that I would do a follow-on from last week's Saturday post where I did some butterfly wings using distress oxides for one of the new Tiny Townie Butterfly Girl stamps from Stamping Bella. She's got these gorgeous, huge butterfly wings, and so I thought it would be fun to show you various ways that you could create those and get some really stunning effects on those wings without too much trouble, especially for those of you that don't enjoy colouring, or at least don't enjoy colouring with Copic markers, etc. I haven't played with my alcohol inks for years. I think the last time I actually got them out was before our previous house move back in 2014. I went through a stage of playing with them then and really haven't since, as they've been packed away in a box. So I've just got some Ranger glossy paper, and I'm using the applicator tool with some of the felt. As you could see, I applied some of the inks to the felt along with some of the blender solution, and then just tap that onto the glossy paper to transfer the colour. And one of the things I really like about using alcohol inks is that you can really keep playing with them until you get something that you're happy with. You can kind of keep adding blender solution, keep adding more ink, and building up as you go. One thing I would remind you is that you will want to work in a well-ventilated area. I made sure to, even though it was a fairly chilly day at the time, to open the windows in my craft room, as yeah, they are alcohol inks, they are solvent-based, so they are going to smell. There will be some fumes from those, so just make sure you work in a well-ventilated area. I'm working on a non-stick craft sheet, which I've had for quite some time. I have recently been using the non-stick, non-slip craft sheet that comes on the Tim Holtz Tonic Studios glass craft mat. That isn't recommended for use with alcohol inks, as they will permeate and stain it. This old piece of non-stick craft sheet is one that I'm not really too concerned about. I'm not really bothered if it gets stained. I would use the Tonic Studios Tim Holtz glass craft mat for working on. But unfortunately the glare from it with the lights in my craft room would just be horrific, because obviously it is glass, so it's highly reflective. So unfortunately I'm having to save that from when I'm not filming. As you can see, I did 3 different colour combinations. I used a slightly different technique on this one. I applied the inks to the mat and then kind of smooshed the paper into the inks, as I did with the distress oxides in my previous video. This is another fun way to apply the colour. You can apply it as you would like, play around with it, see what works for you. There are loads of different ways to apply it. I am by no means an expert. I have not played with these for so long. So yeah, just play around with it. As you can see, I then went in with some blender solution on the felt applicator again, just to go over that and kind of soften some of the effects. And as you can see, I'm just reworking it until I get something I'm happy with. I was really just playing. I didn't have a specific plan. I just wanted to play with the inks and kind of see what happened and see what results I got that I was happy with. Again, I'm just sprinkling some of the blender solution on and then using the felt applicator to kind of soften and tap out that effect. Overall, I was quite pleased with the results that I got for these pieces. I used Ranger archival ink in jet black to stamp the butterfly wings onto these pieces, because the paper that I used is the Ranger glossy paper, and the archival ink will dry nicely on that. As you can see, got a lovely impression. And now I'm just fussy cutting those wings. And I'm not going to show you the fussy cutting for all three of them. As usual with fussy cutting, you want to trim down the paper to a smaller size so that you're not kind of pulling on it as you're cutting. And then hold the scissors straight and turn the paper. This is something I'm not always that great at because I get impatient, but I'm getting better as I kind of as I make myself fussy cut a little bit more. It's not my favourite thing in the world to. After I've finished fussy cutting the wings, I'm going to add some shading with a couple of grey Copic markers. I did have to be careful with this, as the ink I had stamped with was the Ranger archival ink, which will, the Copic markers will sort of dissolve and smudge that because it is solvent based. However, as long as you're careful and aren't trying to move the ink around too much, it worked okay. I just wanted to use the markers to just add a little bit of shading, just to give a cast shadow underneath that top wing, just to add a little bit of extra interest. And after I finished that, I then stamped the images on my favourite Copic friendly paper, Make It Colour blending card, and coloured the dresses and the skin and the hair with Copic markers. I'm going to leave in the colouring process for one of the images, and I'll pop some music on while I do that. with the colouring all finished, it was time to start preparing the cards. I die cut some extra pieces from blank cardstock using the coordinating die for the butterfly girl, just to reinforce those die cuts. I also cut some large stitch circle die cuts using a lawn fawn die set. And then I stamped some sentiments. I grabbed the new Adventure Sentiment set and last year's Summer Sentiment set from Stamping Bella, and used those on the circle die cuts. Popped it in my MISTI and used the butterfly girl just to line everything up. Used a piece of acetate sheet as usual to make sure I got my sentiment straight. And stamp the sentiment on the circle die cut, ready to arrange. I did this for all three. I'm not going to show you all three, just to keep this video at a reasonable length. And then when all the stamping was done, I was ready to start assembling. I grabbed a black brush marker just to go around the edges of those of those fussy cut wings, just to smooth out any imperfections, sort of hide all the rough edges from the fussy cutting. And when that's done, I'm going to start gluing everything together. For the circle die cuts, I use some lovely pearlescent cardstock from Paper Mill Direct here in the UK. And I also used their cardstock to create some card bases. They're square cards. I think they're around 14 centimeters square. And here I'm just putting together the die cut pieces for the butterfly girls. And once those were all glued together, I then started adding the fussy cut wings on the top, ready to put the entire card together. When I had glued everything down using Fabri-Tac glue, as I've mentioned before, I like using a liquid adhesive so that I can kind of have just a small amount of time to move things around and make sure things are positioned exactly where I want them. I don't often use tape adhesives. And once the card bases were all assembled, I then also used some metallic pens. They're the Kirarina Wink pens, to add some details to the butterfly wings. I thought it would be pretty to have some just some dot details added for some extra interest. And the metallic pens seemed like a good choice to dry on top of the Ranger glossy paper. And I then finished it off by accenting with some Nouveau glitter drops from Tonic. I'm really enjoying using those at the moment. I think I'm going to have to add some more to my collection. But I thought with the sort of tone on tone look here, with the simple sort of white on white, the clear Nouveau drops just added some extra texture and interest without distracting from the main focal point, which is those beautiful butterfly wings. And that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see what I did last week with the Distress Oxides as an alternative way to create some butterfly wings for this character, I will link that video in the description below, along with the link to the blog post with all of the product details, etc., if you're interested in that. Thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.